and I hope you're looking as forward as I am to getting into Stem41. So let's just have a look at it. It's the elements that are considered when a coach is planning a training session. And as you can see here on the left, here's the syllabus dot point, and there's 6 different elements that a coach will look at when he's designing and implementing a training session. So the first one is the health and safety considerations. Obviously, at training, and in games for that matter, the safety of the athlete or the player is paramount. So a coach will do as much as is humanly possible to ensure that the risk of injury is minimised. And to do this, they do things like proper warming up, making sure the equipment is in good working order, making sure any safety equipment is used. For example, rugby league, even if you're just doing ball work, put goalpost pads on the posts just in case a player runs into them. So all these little things that are going to ensure that the risk of injury to an athlete is minimised, even down to adequate drink break times, particularly during hot, humid conditions, because obviously rehydration is going to help the player recover a little bit better, which is going to help with their technique, and if technique is okay, then generally the risk of injury is minimised, because usually when players get fatigued, that poor technique comes in and sometimes they execute a skill poorly and injure themselves. So that's the first consideration. Now we get into the actual session itself. So once we start the session, or at the very start of the session, the coach needs to provide an overview. And this is as much to reinforce to himself or herself what is going to happen in that session as to convey the message to the players. It helps prepare the players psychologically or mentally for the session, so they know what's coming up and they can get their head around that and sort of pace themselves. They know, how hard to go. And you'll find you'll achieve a lot better quality of training sessions if players know exactly what they're going to do and how long they're going to do it for. And obviously you're letting any objectives of the session, so specific goals of the session, you're airing them in a public forum with the team so that they understand why they're doing something, because the biggest thing with athletes sometimes is not so much the physical doing of something, but mentally they need to know why. So you need to be able to justify to them why they're going to be doing a certain thing, and it may be for a certain tactic. So we've got the example here of a short corner in hockey. The players need to understand the positioning, why they're positioning in a certain way, and the tactics used. So now getting into the session, obviously this little subheading is warm up and cool down, but obviously the cool down is done at the end of the session, probably prior to the evaluation. And so obviously the warm up just ensures that the player gets ready for exercise, and also not only physically ready but mentally ready. And generally you're looking at least 10 minutes, and a dynamic warm up, so moving, dynamic meaning to move around. Dynamic warm up is better than a static warm up. Just due to the fact that the body temperature can drop. If you run around for a little bit, then you sit down and do static stretches for a reasonable period of time, the body's core temperature can actually drop. So a dynamic warm-up is best interspersed with some sort of static stretching. So you can see here that there's, we've rattled off 4 benefits there to the advantage of the dynamic warm-up. So you can read through them yourselves. Now after the session, this 5 to 10 minute cool down involves stretching or low intensity work to help rid the body of waste products and return the body, like the heart rate, bring that slowly back down to a resting level. Also bring the core temperature down to its normal level as well, gradually rather than a sudden stop. So cool down is obviously done after the session. So that's very important, and it's very important to ensure the quality of the next training session or the game. So that the player is at full fitness when they turn up next for training or turn up for the game. So that's step 3, which is the warm up and cool down. Step 4 is actually the skill part of the training. So this is the first bit of training that's done after the warm up, and in the perfect world it's done straight after the warm up because the players are fresh, so therefore they'll be at their most focused and most alert, and they'll be better able to practice skills. And this is probably the best time to do it for a beginner. However, coaches like to sometimes intersperse the skill instruction with the next part of this, which is the conditioning, which you can see here. So they'll maybe do a little bit of conditioning, then go to skills. and then a little bit of conditioning and go back to skills, so the players actually learn to execute the skills under fatigue, which is a more game-related situation. So, but that's only done with autonomous or sometimes associative level athletes, not really with cognitive level, because the cognitive ones need to be fresh so they can fully focus on the skill itself. Okay, so generally in our plan, in terms of our syllabus plan, the skill instruction will take place immediately after the warm-up. And the better the athlete gets, the more the skill can be broken, the more the skill can be turned into an open skill rather than just a closed skill. So you can build up to executing that skill in small-sided games and things like that. The next step for the training session is conditioning, and they're saying that in terms of our syllabus, this is done after the skill practice, so that it doesn't adversely affect the skill practice, and also perhaps light might not be as good later on in the session, if it's in winter or something like that. Now with conditioning, you're going to be doing a lot more of that during the pre-season, and the intensity is going to be a lot higher because you're not playing. But in season, they're recommended that 15 to 20 minutes is sort of what you need to do just to brush up on your fitness, bearing in mind you're getting match fitness every weekend. So that's why the level of the load has dropped, and is done following the skill training. And you can see here we've sort of made the exception with the fartlek training, which are designed to obviously fatigue the athlete, but then they can go straight into a skill drill so they can learn to do those skills under fatigue. That's only done at sort of the higher levels where the athletes have mastered the skill, but they need to just perform them over and over again under game-like conditions. Finally, coach will evaluate the session. So they'll get feedback from the athletes or the players as to how effective certain drills were. And then they can adjust those. They'll get feedback from their fellow coaches, and they also have their own feedback from their own observations, and they can make any adjustments that need to be made for next time, so that the next training session can maybe be a little bit better. It's also an opportunity just to remind your athletes what their obligations are. If there's a team meeting at 10 a.m. the next morning, or they're meeting for the bus to go to the stadium at a certain time, just run over some housekeeping, things like that. Here's a little sample training session, allocation of 90 minutes. So you start, obviously health and safety considerations are done before the session, and they oversee all of the session to make sure it's done in the safest possible manner. But you've got here the overview, which they've listed as briefing, then the warm-up, then they've done a bit of power work for 10 minutes. And remember, these numbers here are not necessarily minutes. They're looking at sort of sorry, they are minutes. No, they're not. I've just buggered that up, but that's okay. We'll keep watching. Oh, sorry, that's the cumulative minutes. 3 plus 12 is 15, plus another 10 is 25. Oh, good. We're on the same page. So hopefully you both will watch this and see that stuff up, and you'll be able to remind me in class about it. That way I know you've watched the video. But we go to sprint training, then we got skills, then we go to some fitness training, then we go to the warm down and also the evaluation, or the the debriefing, if you like, with the players. So that, boys, is the end of STEM 41. Apologies about the slight technical hitch at the end there, but I hope you enjoyed it and had a good laugh.